The rain pounded against the windows like it was trying to break into the house. I stood frozen in the middle of our tiny living room, my socks soaking up the cold from the hardwood floor. My wife was by the door, her coat already on, one hand, gripping the handle of a bag I'd never seen packed before. Her face was twisted with anger, her eyes red and sharp like she'd been crying or maybe just holding back a scream. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. "I'm done," she said, her voice slicing through the silence. "I can't keep pretending. I don't want to be with you anymore." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. My brain scrambled to catch up. "What?" I finally managed, my voice small and shaky. "Why? What did I do?" She let out a short, bitter laugh, like I'd said something stupid. "It's not about what you did. It's about what I don't feel anymore. I'm not happy. I haven't been for a long time. I want out." I took a step toward her, my hands reaching out, like I could grab her and pull her back to me. "Wait, please. We can fix this. I'll do better. I'll listen more. I don't know. I'll change whatever you want. I love you." My chest tightened as I said it, and I could feel my eyes stinging. She shook her head hard, her dark hair swinging across her face. "No, it's too late for that. You're nice, okay? You're a good guy. But I don't feel it anymore. I'm sorry." She turned her back to me, facing the door like she couldn't wait to get away. I stumbled back and fell onto the couch, my legs giving out. The cushions creaked under me, the only sound left after her words stopped. I stared at her, waiting for her to turn around, to say she didn't mean it. But she didn't. She yanked the door open, letting the rain's roar flood the room, and walked out. The door slammed shut behind her, rattling the walls. For a long time, I just sat there. The house felt too big, too empty without her in it. The TV sat dark in front of me, reflecting my blurry shape like a ghost. My hands clenched into fists, then opened again, useless. I didn't cry, not then. I couldn't feel anything, really. It was like someone had turned off a switch inside me, leaving me numb, but that didn't last. The next day, I woke up with a fire in my chest. I wasn't ready to let her go. I loved her too much, so I started trying to win her back. I sent her texts, simple ones at first, like, "I miss you," and "Can we talk?" She didn't answer. I didn't give up, though. I went to the flower shop down the street and bought a big bunch of daisies, her favorite. I left them on her car at the library where she worked, with a note that said, "I'm sorry. I'll wait for you." No reply. I kept going. I cooked her favorite meal, spaghetti with extra garlic, just how she liked it, and dropped it off at her friend's house where she'd been staying. I saw her friend peek out the window, but the door never opened. I even started doing little things around our house, hoping she'd come back and see I was trying. I scrubbed the floors, fixed the leaky sink, mowed the lawn until it looked perfect. But she stayed gone. Weeks passed, and I started to feel like a fool. My phone stayed quiet. The flowers probably wilted on her windshield. The spaghetti probably went cold in her friend's fridge. I was running out of ideas, and the hope I'd been holding on to was slipping away. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the kitchen, my hands shaking, and pulled open the cabinet where I kept an old bottle of soda. I didn't really want soda. I wanted something stronger, something to drown out the ache in my chest. But when I reached for it, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper instead. I pulled it out, frowning. It was folded up tight, and when I opened it, I saw her handwriting. My heart jumped. The note was short, but every word made my skin prickle. "Don't trust the house," it read. "They're watching. Meet me at the old barn by the lake. Be careful." I stared at it, my breath catching in my throat. She still cared about me, but who was watching? I looked up, suddenly aware of every shadow in the room. The windows seemed too big, the corners too dark. My hands shook as I folded the note and shoved it into my pocket. I had to find her. No matter what, I had to know what was going on. The old barn wasn't far. I grabbed my jacket, my mind racing, and headed for the door, the rain still hammering outside like it was trying to warn me. The night swallowed me whole as I stepped out into the rain. It was coming down hard, soaking through my jacket in seconds, but I barely noticed. My mind was spinning, stuck on that note, her note. "Don't trust the house. They're watching." The words looped in my head like a song I couldn't shake. Who was they? Why was she warning me? And why the old barn by the lake? I didn't know, but I had to find out. She was out there somewhere, and I wasn't going to lose her again. I climbed into my car, the engine rumbling to life as I wiped wet hair out of my eyes. The barn wasn't far, just a few miles down the road, past the gas station and the little bridge over the creek. But the note said they were watching, and that made my stomach twist. If someone was keeping tabs on me, they'd know if I drove straight there. I had to be smarter than that. I gripped the steering wheel tight, my knuckles white, and came up with a plan. I'd pretend I was heading to the gas station. Instead, it was close enough to the barn that I could walk the rest of the way without raising suspicion. The wipers slapped back and forth, barely keeping up with the rain as I pulled out of the driveway. Every shadow outside the car looked like a person, every splash of water like a footstep following me. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights tailing me. Nothing, just the dark and the storm. Still, my heart pounded like it was trying to break out of my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on me, hidden somewhere I couldn't see. The gas station's neon sign flickered into view, a blurry red glow through the downpour. I pulled into the lot and parked near the pumps, leaving the engine, running for a minute like I was just there to fill up. My hands shook as I turned off the car and grabbed my phone. I didn't dare look up the barn's exact spot, not if they could track my searches. Instead, I opened the weather app and stared at it, pretending to check the forecast. It was dumb, but it felt like something a normal person would do, something that wouldn't tip anyone off. I shoved the phone in my pocket and stepped out, the rain hitting me like a wall. The air smelled sharp, like wet dirt and gasoline. I pulled my hood up and started walking, keeping my head down. The barn was maybe a quarter mile away, off a dirt path that wound through some trees near the lake. I'd been there once or twice as a kid, fishing with my dad, but it had been years. I just hoped I could find it in the dark. The path was a mess. Mud sucked at my shoes, and branches scratched at my arms as I pushed through. My breath came out in quick puffs, mixing with the rain. Every snap of a twig made me jump. Every rustle in the bushes made my skin crawl. I told myself it was just the storm, just animals scurrying away, but my mind kept picturing someone lurking, someone with a camera, or worse. By the time the barn loomed up ahead, I was soaked and shivering, my nerves frayed to threads. It looked worse than I remembered. The wood was rotting, peeling away in strips, and the roof sagged like it might cave in any second. One of the big double doors hung crooked on its hinges, creaking in the wind. I stopped a few feet away. This was it. She was in there, or at least, she had been when she wrote the note. I took a deep breath, the cold air burning my lungs, and stepped closer. My hand shook as I reached out and knocked, The sound dull against the roar of the rain. Nothing. No footsteps, no voice. Just the storm howling around me. I waited, counting the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. Still nothing. My stomach sank. Had I gotten it wrong? Was this the wrong place? I knocked again, harder this time, desperation creeping in. The door rattled, and then, with a slow groan, it creaked open on its own. I froze, staring into the black hole beyond it. No light, no sound, just an empty, gaping darkness. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. I took a step inside, my shoes squishing on the wet floorboards. The air smelled musty, like mold and old hay. I squinted, trying to see anything, when a light snapped on somewhere deeper in the barn. It was dim, flickering, but enough to make me blink. My heart leapt. Someone was here. "Hey, is that you?" I said, taking another step. Footsteps echoed back, heavy and fast. Before I could turn, something grabbed me from behind. Big hands clamped around my arms, pinning them to my sides. I gasped, twisting against the grip, but it was like fighting a wall. A shadow moved in front of me, a huge guy in a dark mask, his eyes glinting through the holes. Panic shot through me. "Let go," I yelled, kicking out, but he didn't budge. Surprise, a voice said, smooth and cold. My head snapped toward it, and there she was, stepping out of the shadows. My wife. She looked different, her face sharp, her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It wasn't a happy smile. It was something darker, something that made my blood run. Cold. WH. I sat in my car outside the barn for what felt like forever, the rain drumming on the roof like it was trying to hammer some sense into me. My clothes were soaked, clinging to my skin, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her words kept replaying in my head. "You're going to lose everything." That smile of hers, cold and sharp, stuck with me too. I didn't know what to do. Drive home? Call someone? My phone sat heavy in my pocket, but every time I reached for it, I stopped. What if she was still watching? What if she'd hear me? Finally, I turned the key and drove back to the house, the road blurring through the rain and my own foggy thoughts. The whole way, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting her car or someone else's to appear behind me. Nothing did, but that didn't calm me down. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked different, darker. The windows stared back like empty eyes, and the front door felt like a trap waiting to snap shut. I sat there for a minute, gripping the wheel, before forcing myself to get out and go inside. The next few days were a nightmare. It started small. My boss called the morning after the barn, his voice tight and angry. "We got some emails," he said. "They look like they're from you, saying weird stuff about the company. We're suspending you until we figure this out." I tried to explain, but he cut me off. "No pay. Stay home." Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my stomach sinking. She wasn't kidding. Then my car got hit. I woke up to find the driver's side window smashed, glass glittering on the seat like tiny teeth. Nothing was stolen, just broken for no reason. I taped it up with a trash bag, but the damage was done. Later that day, I checked my bank account online, and it was locked. A message popped up. "Contact customer service for suspicious activity." When I called, they said someone tried to drain it. They couldn't tell me who. She was everywhere, tearing my life apart, and I couldn't even see her doing it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept pacing the house, peeking out the windows, jumping at every creak. The note from the soda cabinet sat on the kitchen table, mocking me. They're watching. Who? Her? Someone else? I wanted to rip the place apart, look for cameras. But what if that tipped them off? I felt trapped, like a mouse in a cage, with no way out. By morning, I was a wreck, bags under my eyes, hands jittery from too much coffee. I didn't know how much more I could take. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't know. My heart stopped as I opened it. The screen lit up with a picture, and I nearly dropped the phone. It was my little brother, my goofy, loud little brother who just turned 20 last month. He was tied to a chair, ropes cutting into his arms. A dirty cloth was stuffed in. His mouth and his eyes were wide, scared. In the foreground, a knife gleamed, held by a hand I couldn't see. Below it, words, "Cut off one of your toes and leave it by the mailbox tonight, or he loses his hand." I ran to the bathroom and threw up, the coffee burning my throat on the way back up. My knees hit the floor, and I stayed there, shaking, the phone clutched in my hand. Tears blurred the screen, but I couldn't stop staring at his face. He didn't deserve this. He had nothing to do with me and her. I wiped my eyes and stumbled to the living room, collapsing onto the couch. The clock on the wall said PM 6 hours. 6 hours to decide. I couldn't think straight. My mind raced, call the cops, run to his apartment, anything but her. Voice from the barn cut through it all. I'll take everything. If I went to the police, she'd know. If I tried to find him, she'd hurt him faster. I looked down at my foot, still in its muddy shoe from the night before. One toe. Could I do it? Could I save him that way? The thought made me sick again, but I couldn't shake it. I stood up and started pacing again, my socks leaving damp trails on the floor. The house pressed in around me, the walls too close, the silence too loud. I grabbed a kitchen knife and sat at the table, staring at it. The blade was dull, chipped from years of cutting vegetables. I pressed it against my pinky toe through, my sock testing it. My breath hitched. I couldn't do it, not yet. I dropped the knife and buried my face in my hands, trying to breathe. The clock ticked on. PM, my phone stayed quiet, no more texts, no calls. I kept picturing him, tied up somewhere dark, waiting for me to fail. I thought about her too, how she'd turned into this stranger, this monster. How had I not seen it? How had I let it get this far? PM rolled around, and I picked up the knife again. My hands were steadier now, but my heart wasn't. I pulled off my shoe and sock, my bare foot cold against the floor. The toe looked so small, so normal. I pressed the blade against it, just enough to feel the sting, and stopped. I couldn't. Not without knowing if it would work. What if I did it, and